Hello boys and girls, welcome to lesson 7-5. Solve and write division equations. We're going to continue working with equations. We've done adding and subtracting, and now we will be doing division. And as we've done with adding and subtraction, we've used the subtraction property of equality, and we've used the addition property of equality. Now for division, we're going to use the multiplication property of equality. Let's look at how this applies to the real world. So Leslie spends $5 a month on snacks at school, which is 1/4 of her monthly allowance. Complete the questions below to find Leslie's monthly allowance. Okay, so her monthly allowance, she has $5, and we say that's 1/4. Okay, so if this were in her entire allowance here, we would want to know what 1/4 of it is. So we could cut this into 4s, right? There it is, cut into 4, and we know that this much here, right, is $5. That's $5. So, and that's 1/4. And this entire thing is her monthly allowance. Okay, so if this is 5, and it's divided, and that's 1/4, we have 5, 10, 15, 20. But how can we write that as an equation? So we know what Leslie's monthly allowance is. What operation did you use to find Leslie's allowance? Well, if I have 1/5 here, and we know that that's only 1/4, we can multiply it by 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 to get 20. This is 1/4. You multiply 5 times 4, right? And that'll give you your monthly allowance of 20. So what operation did we use? Multiplication. How can you check your answer to determine if it's accurate? Well, we can use inverse operations, so with the opposite of operation, right? And divide $20 by 4 to check to see if the answer is accurate. Please place a star right there as a key answer. Pause the video to finish copying this down. So the main idea is, for solving division equations, in the situation on the previous page, the equation A, which is our allowance, divided by 4 was 5, right? Because we said 1/4, and we take any number and divide it by 4, we get 1/4 of it, was 5. Where A represents the monthly allowance, means the monthly allowance is divided by 4, because we want 1/4 of it, right? We want one part of 4, so we divide it by 4, and it's 5. Since multiplication and division are inverse operations, use multiplication to solve division equations. So if I have A, now let's try white, sorry. If I have my A, which is my allowance, and it's divided by 4 so that I can get 1/4, and I know 1/4 is 5, right? I would use the opposite, I would use the inverse operation. This can be written as a fraction, okay? And the inverse is 4/1. Okay, we have an expression. Right now it's only one expression, it's one variable, over 4, and when we flip this around and we invert it, we write 4/1. Remember, the property of equation means whatever you do to one side of the equation, you must do it to the other side. So when we equal, this is going to be 5. Remember, the 5 is over 1, and it's just like multiplying fractions, so we write 4/1 there as well. Okay? So notice that I use the inverse of the expression. So in reality now I'm multiplying. And when I multiply, boys and girls, I can do cross-reference first to simplify. I cross-reference the 4's, and the 4's are gone. Now it's A/1, but A/1 is just simply A. So I have A left. That's how we were able to isolate the variable on this side of the equation. Okay, and on this side, 1 times 1 is 1, and 5 times 4 is 20. So A is 20. 20 divided by 4 is 5. That's correct. Please take a look at example 1, okay, so that you can see the similar example, okay, except this time we have A being divided by 3, and it gives us 7. So this is a number that can be cut into 3 parts, and one part is 7. 7, 7, 7, right? So what do we have? I'm sure a lot of you already figured out that it was 21, right, as you see there. But notice how we multiply both sides by 3. It's the opposite. It's the opposite of division. So when you multiply, you get rid of the 3 on this side, and on this side you get your 21. If you think you understand how to do this, please pause the video and try it, and then check your answers. Pause now. Okay, so the first question here, let's multiply both sides by the inverse. The multiplicative inverse, or simply, we multiply by 8. And when you multiply by 8, okay, you're undoing the division. Because it's 8 over 1, so it crosses out and out. And over here, it's 9 over 1. You know the 9 is also over 1. And 9 times is 72. Okay? 9 times 8 is 72. So x is 72. And that makes sense. If I take 72 and I divide it by 8, I'm going to get 9. Okay, and b, multiply both sides by 4. By 4. And I get, on this side I get 32. These two cross each other out. And y equals 32. Okay, on this side we're going to multiply both sides by 5. Multiply by 5. These two cancel each other out. And then I have m equals 45. And again, let's isolate the b. So we must multiply by its inverse, which is 2 over 1. Okay, and 2's cross each other out. 2 over 1. This is over 1. And 2 times 3 is 60. And it's over 1, but we're not going to write it, because 1 times 1 is over 1, but we're not going to write it. So all we have left over is b. So b is 60. It makes sense, right? A number divided by 2 is 30. Well, it's got to be 60. 60 divided by 2 is 30. And this is the scale that we're following. As I mentioned before, we were doing the subtraction property of equality, addition property of equality, and now we're doing the multiplication property of equality, which implies if you multiply each side by an equation by the same non-zero number, the two sides remain equal. Okay, as you see here, you have 3 equals 3, 3 times 6, and 3 times 6. They both remain equal as 18. And algebraically speaking, if you're dividing a number and you multiply it, okay, remember when you're dividing by 4 and then you multiply by 4, you totally undo what you just did, right? So they cancel each other out and it stays as x. And then when you multiply the other side, you have x equals 28. And we have example 2 here. It's a word problem. The weight of an object on the moon is 1/6 that of its weight on Earth. If an object weighs 35 pounds on the moon, so this would be 1/6, right, guys? Because we're saying that the weight on the moon is 1/6 of that on Earth. So if it's 35 pounds on the moon, that's 1/6 of whatever weight we're looking for. Write and solve a division equation to find. So we're looking for the weight. We're looking for the weight on Earth. And it's going to have to be divided by 35. Because 35, oh sorry, no, not by 35. I just made a little mistake there. It's going to have to be divided by 6 because it's 35 is 1/6. Right? Does that make sense to you? And here it is. This whole thing is the weight on Earth. Here's the weight on the moon, which is 1/6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? So we're going to take the weight on Earth divided by 6 because 35 is 1/6. So then to get rid of the 6, we have to, and this side is division, we have to multiply by 6. We multiply it by 6 on both sides. And the weight on Earth is 210 pounds. Okay, let's try the word problem. Nathan picked a total of 60 apples in 1/3 of an hour. So in 20 minutes, 1/3 of an hour, he picked 60 apples. So 1/3 is 60 in terms of apples. Write and solve a division equation to find how many apples Nathan could pick in 1 hour. Okay, we know that 60 is what he got in 1/3. So in order to get 1/3, you have to divide the number by 3. And we'll use A for apples. So a third, okay, 1/3, you divide it by 1/3 to get, 60 is 1/3. So you have to divide the number by 3 to get 1/3. Okay, so your equation looks like this. I hope that makes sense to you. If it doesn't, please rewatch this. Now to solve it, we're going to multiply both sides by 3, okay, which is the inverse operation of division. This will cross this out, okay, which is leaves with the A, and 60 times 3 is 180. So in 1 hour, if he doesn't stop, Nathan could pick 180 apples. As you can see by example 3, not all the questions or equations will have whole numbers. This one has a rational number with a decimal. Let's try question F. Okay. Allison is baking a pie. Okay, she's baking a pie. She wants 4.5 strawberries in each serving for 8 people. So she wants 4.5 strawberries. She wants 4.5 strawberries in each serving, in each slice of pie for 8 people. So she wants this 8 times. Make sense? Okay, so what she wants is she wants 4.5. Okay, 4.5 for 8 people, but we're cutting up a number of strawberries in servings of 4.5 to get 8. Okay, so our servings can be represented by the letter S. Okay, so we have the letter S for servings. We're going to divide that number by 4.5 so that we can get 8 servings. Again, I hope that makes sense to you. We multiply both sides by 4.5. Okay, so that's gone, and this side by 4.5. Okay, 8 times 4 is 32, and 8 times a half is 4, so this will be 36, right? Because 32 plus 4 is 36. So there's our 36, and that's our S, our servings. So she's going to need, or strawberries, she's going to need 36 strawberries, and she has to divide it by 8 to get servings of 4.5. Okay, go ahead and leave the guided practice for class so we can do it together. Please complete the entire independent practice. Take your time doing it, boys and girls. Really, this is the part where you do a lot of learning, when you try on your own. If you have any questions, please make sure to ask me in class when we check it. And on the back of the page, we have to identify all the properties we've been working with. So write the property used to solve each type of equation. So if we have an equation with addition, we have to use the subtraction property of equality. If we have an equation using subtraction, we have to use the addition property of equality. So as you can see, we're doing the opposite. We're doing the inverse. Okay, we're doing the inverse operation. If we have multiplication, what is the opposite of multiplication? Division. So we would use the division property of equality. And finally, when we have division, we would use the multiplication property of equality. Okay, boys and girls, let's put a star right here, right in the middle. I'll see you in class.